Man, this July 10th show is going to be great. Quite the bill at Revue Music Center. Train, REO Speedwagon, and none other than Yacht Rock Revue. I have founding member Nick with me right now. Welcome back to the show, Nick.
I always love being on WTTS. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate that. Well, okay, so let's get into that. So we've kind of touched on this, you and me, but I want to get the full story of the band's connection, your connection, I guess, to Bloomington. I mean, if you look up Yacht Rock Revue on the interwebs, you see that it's an Atlanta-based band. But remind us how you're connected to Bloomington.
Oh, yeah. 4 of the members of our band are IU graduates. And Peter and I, the other frontman, grew up in Columbus, Indiana, right down the road. And so I was listening to WTTS growing up. I mean, it was very influential for me in my formative years. I remember you guys were playing like Dave Matthews before anybody else played Dave Matthews. You guys were, playing Counting Crows before anybody else. Like all of that music was my first experience with it was with you guys. Like before that was in vogue, you guys were kind of like cherry picking some outliers and highlighting those. And I always thought that was so cool and kind of helped expand the musical vocabulary for someone growing up, a little bit sheltered in Southern Indiana. It was cool.
Well, we appreciate that. And indeed, that's still part of the mission here as far as the music goes. All right. I know things have really blown up for Yacht Rock Revue in the last few years. Do you know what the biggest crowd is that you've played to?
Oh, man. It's still probably, we opened up for Ludacris at the Final Four in Atlanta. Like in Central Park in Atlanta, we opened up for Ludacris. I'll never forget. I got to hang out with Christian Laettner and give him a hard time about beating IU, like backstage, and like Ludacris. It was like 60,000 people. It was crazy. I mean, we played some big shows on the Kenny Loggins tour. I bet some of the biggest are going to be on this Train and REO tour because we're playing big places like Revue, which I will always refer to as Deer Creek.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, that's going to be this Rudolph show is like a childhood dream of mine. Like I always, grew up going to see Lenny Kravitz and Fish and everybody at Deer Creek. And I'm speechless, honestly.
I'm sure you figured out by now that some of the best fan interactions start off looking kind of sketchy, like they're a little too excited, but sometimes that can end up being really wholesome or really fulfilling for you. Do you have any stories like that of fans just being a little overhyped, but then something really cool happens?
I mean, that's the story of our fans in general. Like we had some momentum going into the pandemic started, and all of a sudden no shows. So we started doing these live broadcasts on Facebook and YouTube, and a group developed called the Anchorheads, who are exactly the kind of people you're talking about, like hardcore fans that know way more about us than sometimes makes me and my family comfortable, but they're the kind of fans you always wanted growing up.
Sure.
Like it's incredible. And now we have this whole ecosystem of fans that love us, not just because we're good at singing Hall Oates, but they love our original music and they know about us as people. And like you said, it seems maybe creepy at first, but it's actually completely wholesome. And like I said, just the kind of fans you always wanted when you were growing up.
The Anchorheads. I love that. Nick from Yacht Rock Revue going to be on stage with Train and REO Speedwagon at Revue Music Center on July 10th. And Nick, all the best for this upcoming tour and this show particularly. We'll see you then.
Thanks. Get ready to yacht rock, Indiana. We're coming for you.